two comments there. First of all, I like some of the fiscal responsible moderate Democrats. We actually need on that side more of them. They're being chased out of the party. Look at the retirements. Those are the ones that are doing it. Number two, you mentioned the balanced budget may not be the best choice. I have come to the opposite conclusion. That's absolutely what's necessary. Republicans overspent beyond the budget in the name of national security. And now it's just, it's out of control. And the other part, and I'm actually working on this right now, but I actually think that balanced budget amendments, we also have to have the provision to start buying down after that. Because I have the same exact words. I sat down with several Omaha area economists that I trust, and they're all saying the same thing that you just said. We're going to be like Greece here pretty soon. Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am. No, go ahead.
I was just wondering, from what I've heard about the capital market act, it seems like it's more of a thing that force businesses to become more accountable and become find alternate means of energy. So from what you're saying, it's just very contradictory.
No, it's not. You're right.
I mean, so why?
So what you do is drive up the.
That people are starting to find things that aren't or
it's not contradictory. I mean, that's the whole plan of cap and trade is to make today's energy so expensive that all of a sudden what's expensive energy isn't comparably expensive. I think making businesses pay is to operate and take money from them is not a sound environmental policy. Because if you want OPG to go to a cleaner energy, why do you sit there and say, well, you pay the government millions of dollars instead of putting that into equipment and capital improvements to do so? It makes no sense to me. I'm sorry, that theory makes no sense. Take your capital money, give it to the government, and we'll make sure that you can never be in compliance, and you'll just shut it down, and everything will get very expensive. Yes, ma'am.
However, the index that determines the rate is warranted shows an increase. Why did the index for Social Security military retired rates show a decrease?
Yeah, that's a good question, a fair question. The way that Congress's raise is set is on whatever is 0.5% of the federal employees' cost of living, which is set by the president and is not put to inflation. So that's why Congress voted specifically to not take that, so we can stand with you and be in the same position. No cost of living increases. And by the way, even though out in the federal government, they receive, the basic federal employees receive, I think, a 2% raise this year. My employees also stood with you and took no cost of living increases.
Okay, also, we want to know why your staff is responding to questions by email when we're providing that option.
Jessica? We have somebody here that said they've been emailing our office and have gotten no replies. Now, is that just recently?
I don't know. He didn't tell me. Bill Haynes. I don't know if you can email that.
Bill Haynes.
H-A-N-E-S.
All right. We have a policy that everyone, whether they email or got a pretty, we get a lot of requests to buy Viagra, so obviously our standards are very
Well, the last question that I was about is that we understand the Senate forward about our bills for the correction case, rate structure. What is the status of the bill which you oppose it?
automatic pay raises. Yeah, I've said many times that I think that Congress needs to not have automatic, but determine year by year whether there should be an increase in congressional pay. That should be made on a yearly basis based on merit, frankly. Yes, sir.
I find myself in an odd position because I just have to mention this whole environmental thing since it's been brought up. That on an intuitive level, we've all known, sort of, at least a lot of us, have said this doesn't make sense, that this is being driven by an agenda. And now we found out that there have been people that have cooked books, so to speak. And so, while I've thought all along, based on my own observations, that this thing was a fraud, when it comes to cap and trade, I believe that the evidence is now that this is a fraud when it comes to the motivation behind cap and trade, and then also the whole global warming. I really just call it nonsense now. I think it's been revealed as a hoax. I don't know if everybody else feels that way.
It is.
That's
No, of course not.
No, there was a reason. No, that's not what I actually.
Oh, okay.
I had to respond to that because in my mind, and I may be wrong, but this is a hoax, and it needs to be at least talked about as a hoax now. But Lee, the reason I came is I went to a couple of town halls, and you've been great about answering questions. But you remember the guy that asked a question down in Bellevue, and he really runs Bellevue Gate. And what's interesting is almost everybody here has talked about the Constitution. All of the questions have been gathered around the Constitution. What that guy's question was is, why don't we just have a bill that, and I realize this is complicated, it's difficult to do it in language, but why don't we have a bill that you don't pass a single law that doesn't meet a constitutional test, so that we can make sure that every law is following the Constitution. And then only one more thing. This morning I was sitting reading through your voting record, and this is, all I was doing was trying to think, well, what would I ask you if I was able to do it? I want to challenge him on his voting record. And I said, heck with it. I'm not sure that there's anything here that actually lives up to the Constitution of the United States. This is, in my mind, a bit of a, I don't mean to get too passionate about this, a bit of a corrupt process that Washington uses our money against us. And what I want to see is that come to an end. I've had it with government using my money against me to manipulate. And when I say that, what I'm really talking about is that you, Lee, when you talk about renewable energy, and you talk about all of those things, wind generation and stuff like that, what you're doing is you're picking the winner. When you authorize spending for, I think it's either 10 or 20,000 vehicles, electric vehicles for the post office, I guess now I'm on a roll. But I'll tell you, when you authorize spending for that, I understand your motivation behind it, but the government has no place doing that. And so I've basically had it with this idea of a government that thinks that they need to be into every activity.